to share his perspective as a South Floridian and Miami person, resident. They understand this as acutely as anybody. Because the action was taken by President Trump, Democrats are apoplectic. They claim they didn't like Maduro either, but because President Trump took action, as was noted earlier, they're now critical of it. They're going to cut off their own nose to spite their face. This is the modern Democrat Party. Instead of a caucus-wide therapy session, how about Democrats acknowledge that it's a fundamentally good thing for freedom-loving people around the world that Maduro is gone? And I want to reiterate what I said following our Gang of Eight briefing yesterday, which was the 20th such briefing by the Trump administration to Congress regarding Venezuela. And there's more scheduled this week, as you know, in about an hour or so, to 45 minutes. All the members of Congress are going to meet in the CVC auditorium, and all the administration officials are going to brief them on this issue. The U.S. military operation in Venezuela was decisive and justified. Nicolas Maduro was responsible for the deaths of Americans after years of trafficking illegal drugs and violent cartel members into this country, and this is undisputed, and everybody knows it. These are crimes for which he's been properly indicted in a U.S. court, and an arrest warrant was duly issued, and now he has learned what accountability looks like under President Trump. The U.S. is no longer going to allow criminal regimes to profit from wreaking havoc and destruction on our country. That's what the American people voted for. They wanted to return to the rule of law, insanity at the border, and they wanted this kind of nonsense and dangerous activity to stop. Republicans are putting Americans first and succeeding where others have failed. The operation demonstrated the unmatched, by the way, precision, effectiveness, professionalism, and capacity of the U.S. military. There's no fighting force on the planet capable of doing what we can do. And you should sleep well at night knowing that you live under the blanket of that protection. Our brave military was in and out of Venezuela in 2.5 hours, and there wasn't a single American casualty. It's really something that everybody should respect and applaud. And because I'm sure you'll have questions, let me be clear. The Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war. There's no dispute about that, of course. But we are not in a war in Venezuela. The Constitution also vests the president with the power as commander-in-chief that he can use to deploy military forces to address threats to the U.S. and enforce our laws. And that's what happened here. It's exactly what happened here. The War Powers Act has been cited by Democrats. It only requires notification to Congress within 48 hours of the initiation of hostilities. It does not require prior approval, and they properly notified Congress. And I've mentioned publicly, Secretary Rubio called me at 4 a.m. To notify the Speaker of the House of what was taking place and why. Despite the claims, by the way, they submitted that to us in writing as well. They checked all the boxes, did everything they were supposed to do. Despite the claims by some of my colleagues under the War Powers Act, there's just not a requirement that they do anything else. I'll address appropriations, take your questions. This week, the House is going to advance, as you heard, the next set of the FY26 appropriations bills. We're going to continue our strides to restore regular order around here and get back to the appropriations process. We're not totally there yet on the full, what you would fully call regular order, but my, have we pushed this boulder up that hill. And it's been quite an effort, as you know. Since I became Speaker 2 years and 3 months ago or so, I started talking about this, the urgency, the necessity of us getting Congress back to work the way it's supposed to. And we've made big strides in that now. And so this week, as you know, we're going to advance energy and water, commerce, justice, science, and the interior environment appropriations bills, 3 more in that package. We have plans to do the next 3 next week, and then we'll continue. And I want to say, this is bipartisan effort. You got both parties working on this, and that's to be applauded. Our appropriators worked very hard through the Christmas holiday to have these bills prepared on our return. They worked through the holiday, and my team, all of us, we worked. We didn't take any time off to make sure this would happen, and we're grateful for all that work. These 3 bills spend less than if we had advanced another continuing resolution. They deliver critical priorities for House Republicans' districts, and they continue to advance President Trump's America First agenda. With just 3 weeks to go until the funding deadline, we're very hopeful, very bullish that this package of bills is going to continue our good momentum towards completing annual appropriations with regular order without a bloated, wasteful omnibus spending bill. And I'll close with that and take your questions. But I told the House Republicans just now, I said, don't lose sight of this great Christmas blessing. We did not have a Christmas omnibus nightmare situation for 3 years in a row now. Why? Because Republicans take our responsibility seriously. Yeah, go ahead.
when President Trump has talked about military action in Greenland, he said that there didn't need to be military notification or that this wasn't a war act in Venezuela. If there is military action in Greenland, would Congress need authorization? And also, would Congress need authorization for need to have power of the purse for control of oil in Venezuela?
Okay, let me address them in turn. We're not at war with Greenland. We have no intention of being it. We have no reason to be at war with Greenland, okay? Everybody knows there's geopolitical and strategic importance of that landmass, and that's what everyone has talked about. By the way, this is not just President Trump. I think this goes back to Truman. Like many presidents have acknowledged the strategic placement of Greenland and how important that could be to our country. And the president's talked about that, rare earth minerals and other things. They're talking about diplomatic channels for this, okay? There's lots been said about it, but I know this personally because I talked to the governor of my state a couple of days ago, Jeff Landry, who has been appointed to be our person there, our individual who would go and help with these negotiations. So that is in America's interest. It is not, I think it's not against Greenland's interest. There's a lot of thoughtful discussion to be had there, and that's what we expect is going to happen. So all this stuff about military action and all that, I don't think it's, I don't even think that's a possibility. I don't think anybody's seriously considering that. And in the Congress, we're certainly not. Okay, so with regard to Venezuela, we have to see what plays out. I went to the Gang of Eight briefing. It was very detailed, as even the Democrats who are grumbling about some of this, who were in that briefing, will attest. They have said as much. It was military precision. Our armed forces do an extraordinary job. General Kane is an extraordinary leader for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Another reason you should sleep well at night. Secretary Hegseth, great job at Defense, at Department of War, Department of War doing all this. And Secretary Rubio was there, Attorney General Bondi, CIA Director Ratcliffe. I mean, we had everybody. And they went through the details and they explained the rationale and why everything happened as it did. I don't think anybody could have any complaint or question about that. And I expect they're going to give almost that same level of information in a larger auditorium. And I think members of Congress are going to understand this fully. What happens next? There are plans and procedures in place, but it's impossible to know exactly how it's all going to play out. We have to see how that works. I trust the people who are in charge of this. I'm told, and the President has mentioned, and Secretary Rubio has mentioned, that our American oil companies will be involved in getting that infrastructure back up, and that will have a lot to do with how all this sorts out. But we don't know the details of that yet, and I certainly don't. The House has not been apprised of it because I think it is in the works right now. This has just happened. This is a seismic development. This just happened. Some of this is unprecedented. It is not a regime change. I want to emphasize that. It is a change of the actions of the regime. As you know, they have an interim president now, and so we're not boots on the ground. We're not occupying Venezuela. We haven't declared war on Venezuela. We went to get a criminal who had been indicted in a U.S. court under our due process, and we're going to bring them to justice on American soil. We should applaud that. It's going to stop the killing of millions of people. Yeah.
Just to follow up, because you say that the military action is not going to happen. So then, is it responsible for the White House to continue to raise the specter of military action? They said very explicitly.
I've spoken to the question. I'm not going to take 1,000 gotcha questions this morning trying to pit me against the White House. It is. I've said I can't be more clear than I have been on this. I've given lengthy statements on it. You know where I stand. You know where the House stands. We're going to get a briefing today, and then we'll see how it develops. So everybody relax. Yes.
Last question. On that note, though, did Secretary Rubio tell you all in the briefing that the U.S. plans to buy?
Look, I was.
Also, if that is the case, first of all, how does that square with NATO? And then how does that square with the overwhelming message from Americans in the election that they care about the economy and issues here at home?
Okay, look, it is an America first priority to look to our strategic and national defense initiatives and what would be advantageous to us. Greenland offers a lot of that. I've mentioned this already. Obviously, the strategic importance of its geographical placement, but also the rare earth minerals that are there and everything else. That is directly in line with commitments made on the campaign trail by President Trump and all of us to seek America's interest first. Now, that said, does that mean we're going to go send troops into Greenland and take it over? No. I mean, they only have, 50,000 people there. This is not a thing, okay? Did Marco say something like that? I think he did. I mean, it was over a 2-hour meeting in the Gang of Eight, and I think he did make a comment, but I think he did it with a smile. I took that as as a joke. He was trying to be humorous about it, okay? Do we know whether there's going to be some sort of financial arrangement in these negotiations? I mean, none of us know, but Marco did not go into the Gang of Eight and say, we're going to buy Greenland. That's not what happened, okay? Marco Rubio was a long-serving member in Congress, in the Senate. He is very close colleagues and friends with most of us in the Gang of Eight who were in that room, and we spoke as old friends and colleagues, and it was a relaxed setting because we all know one another, and everybody in that room knows that Marco Rubio is an honest broker, and in my view, the most highly qualified person. He is a gift to America right now with his insights, particularly on these issues, Western Hemisphere and Venezuela and all the rest. So he is one that's highly respected in that room, and even when you disagree with some of the play calls, they can't dispute anything he said. And look, everybody understood the context of that conversation. It was obviously supposed to be off the record because we're in the skiff and it was highly classified. But there were a lot of things said back and forth that you should not be running with as headlines as if it's some sort of new U.S. policy. They wouldn't have broken it in front of Chuck Schumer in the Gang of Eight meeting. Okay, well, that's one. Yeah.
The president, as you saw, said that he is going to get 50 million barrels of oil or something from Venezuela. Does the president have the authority to unilaterally seize oil from Venezuela and then use the money from the sale of that oil as he sees fit, as he said he's going to do?
I hear Congressman Jimenez over my shoulder, who's the world's expert on all this, saying that is sanctioned oil, okay? And I'm not going to get up here and tell you the details of all these developments because it's still being developed. There are a lot of ideas. There's some brainstorming being done out loud by all sorts of people, many of whom are not even authorized to have these conversations. I would not run with too many of these headlines right now, okay? I'm telling you that all of this is developing right now. I am very confident we have steady hands at the wheel, and then this will be figured out. So stay tuned. Thank you all.
Do you have a date for State of the Union?
I believe State of the Union is going to be...
Can you say that? That's important to say.
Get back to the podium.
You got the breaking news with the
State of the
speakers.
Union will be when?
I think the date, this is off the top of my head, I think it's like maybe February 24th we're looking at, okay? It'll be soon. We were looking at some alternative dates and trying to figure out what works, but I think that's the week that we're in session and in mid to late February, and that would be the preference of the White House. But just wait for further development, but I wanted you to know it's coming. It's coming.
Are you concerned with the death of Mr. LaMalfa and what happened, obviously, with Marjorie Taylor Greene resigning? Is your majority in jeopardy? Is it so tenuous that the House could flip during this Congress?
No. Can I give you my honest reflection on this? Okay. As was noted earlier, we've been working with it. Sorry, I didn't want to do all this. We have been working with a razor-thin majority since I became Speaker. And as you know, at many points in the last year, we had a 1 or 2 vote majority at any given moment. The passing of Doug was a shock to us because we'll miss him as an individual. But this is the group that has demonstrated over and over and over and over that we defy expectations and make history. Look, we do this. It's a very simple thing, okay? This is not the acumen of Speaker Johnson or necessarily all the teamwork of the Republican conference. This is because, I'm going to be very honest with you, I'm a person of deep faith, and we trust in God. That is our national motto, and we act upon that. I put up one slide this morning at the end of conference, and it's a favorite that I have on my phone, and I share it with everybody, and it's an image of the Red Sea party, okay? And some of you guys are going to mock me for this. But look, we just came upon the 250th anniversary. We just started the 250th anniversary of the greatest nation in the history of the world. Our founders and the framers of the Constitution, the founders, including George Washington, the father of our country, used to speak openly about his belief, his solemn belief, that it was divine providence that allowed us to create this great country. I believe that is the secret of our genius. It is the reason we have become the most successful, most powerful, most prosperous, most benevolent nation in the history of the world. And we do well to remember that, and we do. And I believe that God's not done with America yet. Can I put it to you that way, Chad? God's not done with America yet, and it's up to the people in this building to keep this great republic going for another 250 years. And
one flu season away from losing the majority.
None of us are guaranteed tomorrow. None of us. We don't know what's going to happen. The Bible says you don't worry about tomorrow. You focus on today. Today has enough trouble of its own. We do that every day. We're going to keep delivering. Those seas are going to part when necessary. We're going to keep this great republic. And I know I'm going to be maligned for saying that, and I don't care, because that my worldview is we give God the glory. I believe God has blessed America I believe it is in him who we trust, and I think we do well to remind everybody of that. I'm not worried about the numbers. I don't get up in apprehension or anxiety in any day. I get up every day with hope and anticipation to see what God's going to do for our great country. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
That one looks great. Left and back. How's that? Like more left? Okay. Do you need a mic check?